A man sentenced to 90 years in prison for the KK Corner killings has been granted parole.
We start in Lake Charles, where the community is recovering from a tragic and shocking crime.
3 young people murdered, their bodies left in the store cooler. Teresa Schmidt, KPLC 7 News.
KK's Corner, now under new ownership with a new name, was the convenience store where 3 people were killed in an apparent armed robbery.
Marty LaBeouf, Stacy Reeves, and Nicole Guidry all leave behind family, friends, and a community that will sadly miss them.
It all happened at the intersection of Highway 14 and Tom Hebert Road, July 6, 1997.
The revised sketch of a man thought to be one of the last in the store before closing. But why did it take so long?
These rumors, people still believe them. Let them say them. They ought to say them to you, and if they do, I'm sure lawsuits will follow.
Wayne McKelvin doesn't know pain, and he never will.
I'm not answering any other questions.
I was one of the reporters who was assigned to find out what happened that day, and still reporting new details 26 years later.
This year marks 26 years since 3 people were killed at a convenience store in Lake Charles. The only person who faced charges in connection with the crime was granted parole and had it revoked within 24 hours this year.
With this case back in the news, we decided to take you back to 1997 and bring you up to speed on the decades of developments and the search that continues for those responsible.
KK's Corner, now under new ownership with a new name, was the convenience store where 3 people were killed in an apparent armed robbery. It all happened here at the intersection of Highway 14 and Tom Hebert Road, July 6, 1997.
It was just before 5 Sunday morning when a store employee reported a burglary at KK's convenience store. Soon after sheriff's deputies arrived, the grisly discovery was made. 3 young people murdered, their bodies left in the store cooler. The victims are store employees Marty LaBeouf and Stacy Reeves, seen here in her high school yearbook 8 years ago, and Reeves' babysitter, 14-year-old Nicole Guidry. Sheriff's deputies and the Violent Crimes Task Force spent much of Sunday combing the scene for clues as to who committed the atrocious crime. Spokesman Lana Brunet says investigators are checking into any and all information that might help solve the murders.
Something that may seem very unimportant to them could be a very viable clue to this investigation, and that's why the Violent Crimes Task Force is asking that they call if they feel like they were in the area, if they remember seeing something or somebody or a car or something in that area.
Because of the volume of calls coming into the task force, District Attorney Rick Bryant has assigned an investigator to assist with the probe. Law enforcement officials have been tight-lipped with details of the murders, but Bryant says there are good reasons for that.
What defense attorneys will do is to point out media coverage and newspaper coverage and details and facts and that type of thing, and use that in a manner in which to get a case of this magnitude removed to another jurisdiction. I do not want that to happen. The other reason is that there's information that only the killers will know that we do not want to put into a newspaper or into TV, where this information can be used by someone to, imply that someone else did it using the information that they received.
An undisclosed amount of money was taken from the store. KK's owner and others concerned are in the process of establishing a reward for information that leads to solving the murders. Teresa Schmidt, KPLC 7 News.
I can't imagine somebody looking at my daughter and killing her. I just can't.
Harold Guidry wants the world to see the lives that have been destroyed because of Sunday's horrific crime. Maybe that, he says, will make someone come forward. His daughter Nicole would have turned 15 this August and was described as a quiet, trusting teenager who was about to enter the 9th grade at Iowa High. Nicole's grandmother, Jerry Ferguson, has lost 4 sons. 2 of them were murdered. At this point, she says prayer and her family are the only things that keep her going.
God helps me. If it were not for God, I would be dead. I would be just crazy.
The community has been out all day showing their support for the families of the 3 victims, some by laying wreaths, others by closing for business out of respect for their friends. All we spoke with said they were ready to see justice done.
Well, it makes me want to have them people dropped off at my house so I can do justice myself, is what it makes me want to do, but then you can't do that. The law will take it in their own hands.
Craig Pauley saw one of the victims, Stacy Reeves, at about 11:15 Saturday night at KK's Corner.
Stacy came out, emptied the trash, come over and said her father was a mechanic to help, and she helped me with my car. I left at about 11:15, and when I left, there was nobody here. I feel sorry for her family, especially her daughters.
Reeves of Lake Charles was the mother of twin girls. Marty LaBeouf, Stacy Reeves, and Nicole Guidry all leave behind family, friends, and a community that will sadly miss them.
My son's sitting there, and he asked me last night, will I ever get to see her again? And I said, no.
This as their loved ones try to make sense of a crime that just doesn't. And what Nicole's father says will haunt him forever is what his little girl may have been thinking just before she died.
Because I wonder if she was alive when he left her there. I wonder if she was asking for me. I wonder a lot of things. Because I promised her I would protect her. And now she's dead.
Police are still looking for the person in this composite sketch. Investigators say he may be the missing link to solving the triple murder case at KK's Corner.
We've received a lot of calls. We have not identified the person in the sketch yet, but we have received a lot of calls concerning him. And again, we urge the people to come forward and give us the information which they have.
Although the FBI normally doesn't handle homicides, their assistance has been requested. Don Dixon says by joining forces, the chance of solving this case increases.
In fact, there's an extortion or a robbery of a commercial institution involved in interstate commerce. It gives us the authority and the jurisdiction to investigate. So we will be working this case jointly with the task force. Our nexus is the fact that this was a robbery of a commercial institution.
Hundreds of calls have come into the task force office, and no matter how extreme they may be, they're all checked out. A reward of $10,000 is being offered for information concerning this case.
Obviously, it's been a few weeks, and I would have thought by now that we would have had something concrete. We haven't, but yes, I have ever faith that the case is solvable.
Melinda Johnson, KPLC 7 News.
It's been about a month and a half since the triple murder and robbery at KK's Corner. The checks received from customers during the store's day shift were taken in the robbery. If you wrote or cashed a personal check or traveler's check at KK's between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. July 5th, FBI agent Don Dixon urges you to contact investigators.
Contact us to let us know if that check has been returned or if the check has not been returned, either one. We just need the public's assistance.
Dixon says such information could be extremely important to the investigation.
The checks from the day shift were taken in the robbery, along with the cash. So obviously we're trying to identify any and all checks that were taken to see if in fact any of those checks have been negotiated. And if they are, obviously that would be helpful to the investigation.
As well, Dixon says a survey shows as many as 90 cars pass through the intersection at Highway 14 and Tom Hebert Road every 15 minutes. He again urges anyone who may have driven by the night of the murders to contact investigators.
This would be the Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And we believe there's a lot of people out there that went by that area that have not called us or come in yet. So we really ask for their support. Even if they think they just saw nothing, come in and talk to us. Maybe they saw a vehicle. Just to give us the timeline. It's very important to us.
Dixon says anything someone may have seen around KK's between midnight and 1:30 in the morning, July 6th, is critical to investigators.
We start in Lake Charles, where the community is recovering from a tragic and shocking crime.
It's the national attention investigators pray for to solve cases. America's Most Wanted headlined its weekly program with a look at the KK's Corner triple homicide. Local investigator Larry Killen with the Violent Crimes Task Force was in Washington, D.C. last night at the headquarters of America's Most Wanted.
During the show's 3 airings, which is 3 time zones, we received 52 calls in regards to our case. From there, we'll be checking out all these calls.
Kellen says half of those calls were from this area and the others were from viewers spread across the U.S. After months of investigating and no arrests, he says new tips give them a good point to continue their search. Some new facts were made public during the broadcast, a new, more detailed composite of one of the last known men seen in KK's during closing time, a description of a man seen with him, along with a description of a keychain he carried in his back pocket. The broadcast also brought public investigators' theory of what happened the night Marty LaBeouf, Stacey Reeves, and Nicole Guidry were shot to death. It's believed Stacey Reeves was forced to open the store safe before she was killed.
I feel that we've got a lot more attention, that it's back up in the media again, and that we're going to start getting a lot more leads, and some of these leads that we already have may pan out to be something very pertinent to the case.
Operators for America's Most Wanted will be standing by to take calls on the case. Kellen says he expects more calls to come in that will be passed on to the Violent Crimes Task Force for further investigation. Jackie Leday, KPLC 7 News.
Every fact, every detail, every rumor about what happened July 6, 1997 in KK's Corner has fascinated the public, and no one has been keeping up with the case more than Lane LaBeouf, brother of victim Marty LaBeouf. Like many, he watched America's Most Wanted Saturday night.
I was just overwhelmed with information.
Because LaBeouf says many of the facts that came out in the story he was hearing for the first time, along with the rest of the country, like the witness reenacted here that saw 2 men arguing inside shortly before the store closed, and the red truck that was seen in the parking lot. LaBeouf thinks he, along with the local public, had a right to know sooner.
Anyone who might have been passing the area, if they would have known this information, well, yeah, I've seen that, yeah, I remember that. Holding it back, you know, protect the case. I can see the grounds on that, but I can't understand the amount of information that we received on the show. I can't understand how that wasn't made public.
LaBeouf is pleased with the revised sketch of a man thought to be one of the last in the store before closing. But why did it take so long, 7 months, to surface? Don Dixon with the FBI says the composite was only completed about a month ago. The earliest a nationally renowned hypnotist was able to draw details from the witness. Investigators say they waited to release it with America's Most Wanted for greater impact.
We wanted to release this thing nationally as addition locally at the same time. A lot of the local calls we've got are kind of repeats of the calls we got initially when the case first broke. Some of our new national calls are new type leads that we're going to pursue.
Dixon says other details were withheld to preserve the integrity of the case, and that key witness, the one whose memory generated the sketch, has remained out of the spotlight because she fears for her safety. Mike Rush, KPLC 7 News.
After the sketch was released, rumors started circulating that the person in the image looked like the sheriff's son. We stress that the Violent Crimes Task Force and every law enforcement agency did look into and question the sheriff's son at the time, and they say there was no evidence linking him to it. However, the sheriff would hold a press conference to try and clear his son's name. Lawsuits followed. Eventually, the sheriff was voted out of office. We picked things up in February 1998, 7 months after the murders.
That these people knowingly say that a person is a murderer when they know it is false. I'm telling you, are sick people.
Sheriff Wayne McKelvin is determined to find out who started and who is perpetrating rumors about his son Richard. McKelvin says he may seek criminal charges or pursue civil litigation.
So if I have to, in the name of my son, I'll work with him and we will file suits if this does not stop. So if these rumors, people still believe them, let them say them, but they ought to say them to you, and if they do, I'm sure lawsuits will follow. If I can prove that these people are not just repeating rumors, but they're
Attorney Pam Matthews teaches media law at McNeese. She says proving criminal defamation can be a nightmare in this case.
To prove criminal defamation, they have to prove that that particular person maliciously spread defamatory material. I mean, how do you prove that somebody maliciously did that?
McKelvin is asking for help from the public.
And I'm asking now for any law-abiding citizen that hears these people making false accusations and rumors to please call the Sheriff's Department and give us names, dates, and places.
Matthews says if Richard McKelvin can prove the rumors are false and defamatory and where they came from, he could seek damages in civil court. Pam Dixon, KPLC 7 News.
He said, if people are calling in that Richard McKelvin is a suspect and they're saying he looks like this picture, we need to talk to him. You know what I said that we can't put on TV and look, he's smiling, because I told him what I thought very roughly.
Richard voluntarily went to the Violent Crimes Task Force for questioning. He gave blood and hair samples and even took a lie detector test. According to DeLuche, the results were conclusive.
No evidence that this man is guilty of anything.
Richard McKelvin says he did not know the victims, nor does he know why he was the target in the rumors. His father says his office has questioned suspects that he thinks are responsible for the rumors.
And you're not at this point willing to say who you think that is?
It's not on your life, no.
Throughout the conference, members of the McKelvin family often teared up, evidence of their pain, a pain that Richard says will pass.
Whoever started these rumors, they're not going to make me or my family just go away and fold and go away. We're not going to do that. Y'all have underestimated the strength of the McKelvin family and friends.
Mike Rush, KPLC 7 News.
I'm sorry the sheriff's son was questioned. I'm sorry he and his family have endured the pain of that experience. I agree with the sheriff that speculation and gossip should have no place in law enforcement.
But Attorney Hunter Lundy was concerned about constitutional rights.
Anytime a person of power, particularly a person in law enforcement, decrees that he will use his office to investigate rumors is a frightening thing.
Lundy referred to the persecution of speculation as thought crime and said McKelvin crossed a line that should not be crossed concerning the freedoms of free speech and thought. But with all the finger-pointing, people tend to forget the real victims.
Oh, they've got to grow up the rest of their life without their mother. And they ask for her every single day. They look at her picture. They talk about her.
Cheryl Reeves, the mother of murder victim Stacy Reeves, along with Stacy's 2 daughters.
And I said, now she's left me her 2 beautiful little angels to take care of for her. So I said, that's what pain is. Wayne McKelvin doesn't know pain, and he never will compared to this.
Following the news conference, the families of Stacy Reeves, Terry LaBeouf, and Nicole Guidry met with District Attorney Rick Bryant to see what more could be done. Bobby Reeves told us they didn't think the sheriff's news conference was important.
As far as for like the stuff yesterday, the little mudslinging, that's not important. What's important now is solving this case and find out who killed our children, you know.
Did he express any doubts that the sheriff would be able to do that?
He said eventually it'll be solved. Right now it's just a hard case to mess with.
Despite extreme public interest and concern over the killings, they remain unsolved as the one-year anniversary approaches. But the families of Reeves and Guidry have filed wrongful death lawsuits alleging the murders might have been prevented. The Reeves suit suggests Stacy's life was in danger because she told others she believed the death of her boyfriend, Kevin Abel, had been falsely ruled a suicide when she suspected murder. And the suit says the Sheriff's Department failed to provide protection she was promised. Attorneys Clayton Davis and Hunter Lundy filed suit for the Reeves.
Certain people didn't like her reporting others to be involved in drug trafficking because I think she was giving names to law enforcement as to who she suspected to be involved in the death of Kevin Abel. And it got her killed.
The Reeves suit also speaks of alleged illegal drug activity involving an employee at the store. The suit says if the criminal activity had been stopped by the store owner or the sheriff's department, the murders might have been prevented.
A defendant in this lawsuit was dealing drugs out of the store.
Plus, the suit says employee Miles Addison quit several days before the murders and quotes him as telling friends that it was not a matter of luck that he was not working the night of the murders. Addison is a defendant in the suit.
I think he knew or had knowledge that something might happen. And did nothing about it.
Families are also suing the sheriff for intentional infliction of emotional distress from when he barred them from a news conference he held last February. It was to refute rumors about whether a composite drawing of a potential witness in the case might be McKelvin's son. Davis says the sheriff's actions toward the Reeves were outrageous and violated their rights.
The sheriff came to Mr. Reeves and said that he didn't like him. And in fact, he said, I hate you more than I have sympathy for you. They just want justice done, and they shouldn't be treated that way. It made them feel hurt and upset and angry.
So the families continue their pursuit of justice as the one-year anniversary of the murders approaches. Meanwhile, law enforcement admits they're at a dead end on solving the crime. Teresa Schmidt, KPLC 7 News.
These weren't the only victims of the KK's Corner murders. These are the survivors of that crime that took 3 lives and shattered countless others.
It's been a year of pure horror, I guess is the best way to describe it. First, the shock of finding our son has been murdered and the problems my wife has had in being able to cope and deal with it.
Ellis LaBeouf is Marty's father. The aspiring musician's mother has sought medical attention in dealing with his brutal murder. 1 year after the triple homicide, the crime remains unsolved, and that only makes it harder for the victims' families.
We're angry, we're frustrated that nothing's been done, and we feel like nothing's being done. You know, we just feel left out, that we don't see any progress at all.
If there is such a thing as going on in life without your only child, you know, we do need a closure to it.
Closure may not come in the form of arrests, a bitter reality for the victims' families. But the purpose of this candlelight vigil was to keep the memories of Stacy Reeves, Marty LaBeouf, and Nicole Guidry alive.
We spoiled her. She was my only daughter, first child, and I really miss her a lot.
As a result of this investigation, Thomas Frank Cisco Jr., 29 years of age, from the New Orleans, Louisiana area, has been arrested and charged with three counts of first-degree murder. Due to the fact that this investigation is ongoing, no other details can be released at this time. It is expected that this matter will be presented to the Calcasieu Parish Grand Jury in the near future. Thank you. I'm not answering any other questions. Thank you.
And with that, Task Force leader Lucky DeLuche ended today's surprise announcement. DeLuche did say a tip generated by a story of the murders on America's Most Wanted ultimately led to the arrest. Although he wouldn't tell us on camera, DeLuche did say he expected the case to be presented to a grand jury within 60 days. He wouldn't release a mugshot of the suspect because they're going to put the suspect in a police lineup. It was early in the morning of July 6, 1997, when the bodies of Marty LaBeouf, Stacy Reeves, and Nicole Guidry were found shot to death in the walk-in cooler of KK's Corner convenience store in South Lake Charles. LaBeouf and Reeves were both employees of the store. Guidry was there to babysit Reeves' children. Since then, there have been many charges of a cover-up and criticism of the investigation. Other speculation led to a news conference called by Sheriff Wayne McKelvin.
First, I want to tell you that Richard is not a suspect. My son, Richard McKelvin, is not a suspect, has never been a suspect.
About a year after the murders, all 3 families of the victims filed wrongful death lawsuits alleging negligence on the part of the Sheriff's Department and the Security Alarm Company. Those lawsuits are still pending. As for the murder suspect, Thomas Frank Cisco Jr., lawmen are not saying if he knew the victims or any possible motive for the killings. They do say he's in custody, although they will not reveal where.